Good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click your live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Celeste Giordano, your show host, along with Sherita Herring, my co-host. We're the Global Legacy and Wealth Building for the next hour. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. We also have some new platforms. You can download our free mobile apps on Apple. You can go to the Apple Store. It's WCEG Talk Radio. We also have the Apple TV. We have Android, mobile phones, and last but not least, our disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Well, good afternoon, ladies. How are you today?
Hello.
Yeah, yes.
Great to be here.
Absolutely. And Sherita, my co-host here, I'm so excited for our show here today. This is our nonprofit show, and we have Christine Martinello with the Love Box Foundation, and we have Lynn Pollizi.
Yes.
And I tried to say that correctly.
Perfect.
And and Christine is not a newcomer to here, as well as Lynn is the first time being our guest today. But we always adore having the Love Box Foundation on our show because you bring so much joy and love to the community and all over the world. And just it's always a blessing, Christine, to have you on the show with us today. But before we get started, Sherita, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your company and what you do, please.
Hi, I'm Sherita Herring, and I am the president of the Philanthropy Alliance Foundation, which is an organization that focuses on philanthropy and advancing those entrepreneurs that want to make a difference in the world. I've been in this arena since 1998. We have developed more than 600 organizations, raised over 30 million, and I just truly, truly love the nonprofit arena.
Absolutely. And Sherita, you and I go back to 2016, where we worked at an international summit doing some philanthropy work and serving in Mexico, the Yucatan. And It has just been a blessing to build our relationship over the years, the camaraderie that we share with one another, and the servant hearts that you are, as well as I am, and growing our community and helping other nonprofits and for-profit organizations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. And, ever since we've met, we connected during that time. And ever since we've met, it's more than just being affiliated as far as business. We've become friends, and I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely. I am too. So I'm ready to get started, Sherita, because we've just got a lot of things to cover here today. We're going to have a lot of fun. I think FUN is the key word here, because once we have Christine with us, please have fun. She's got the glasses, and I'm sure she's got my bell that I like.
Let's go.
So we're ready to go. And, so Christine, what I would love for you to do is I would just, you have done so much over the years and so much has changed. I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us about you, what you do, about your nonprofit, and then I'm going to add a few comments to that. And I know that Sherita has been a part of this, of interviewing you before as well, if I'm not mistaken, Sherita.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Christine Martinello. I'm president of Training Solutions International and also founder of Love Box Foundation. And basically what we do is we spread love. We do it in three main ways. The first one is through education programs in schools and with organizations and with families. The second thing that we do is we focus on spreading love with events. So we have the Love Box Awards, we might march in a parade, we do all sorts of things to promote love in communities. And the third thing that we do is we provide resources to families and schools to really promote love and communities as well. And so we provide resources like books. We provide the Love Box kits. We have the Christmas Love Box, the original Love Box. This is a Love Box in white. It also comes in gold. And then we provide books as well, resources, and really learning how to express love in many ways. And so, yeah, that's what we do. And we're fired up about all the growth and how love just is spreading in wondrous ways. So I'm really grateful for you to have me, and Celeste and Lynn and Sherita. I know that we're going to have a great show.
Absolutely. And before I have you introduce Lynn, Christine, again, you and I go back to 2016, where we were serving in networking groups. We were serving the communities and nonprofits together. And I just love how our relationship has developed over the years. I mean, because if you think about it, 2016, this is 7 years for you and Sherita. And I just love what you're doing with the Love Box. And when you were here in Atlanta and all the things that we did, I remember coming to your house numerous times as a love agent, writing love notes, as well as going to some events and supporting you. But most importantly, you and the Love Box Foundation and have always supported the different nonprofit organizations, especially here in Atlanta, but all over the United States and the world. But, we just appreciate how you support women of community impact with the service projects we've done at Home of Hope for the Women and Children's Shelter, the foster children, the cancer children and families and things. And, the list just goes on. And we just thank you for your servant heart and everything that you've done for the women of community impact and our community.
Well, thank you, Celeste. And I want to echo, Sherita, what you said. It's not only an amazing alliances to be able to serve and give back, but also a deep friendship. And so I'm really thankful for that, because, it's so great to have, people that, have your back and you have their back, and when we all work together, we magnify our efforts and our voices. And so the Love Box Foundation and me personally are just so grateful for everything that you've done and the Women of Community Impact, because together we are rising.
Absolutely. And, we have our Home of Hope Mother's Day service project coming up on Monday, May 8th. And I am so excited that you and Bob are going to be in town, and that the Love Box Foundation is going to be on hands with us, serving in person these homeless shelter for women and children. And some of your love agents are going to be there with us. So that is going to be a fun time for us.
Yes, it will be.
Yes, we enjoyed that. So Christine, would you do the honors of introducing our guest and your guest, Lynn, please?
It's my pleasure to introduce you to really the one and only Lynn. Wait till you hear her voice. She's got this amazing voice and amazing spirit. And thank you, Lynn, for joining us. Lynn is a clinical social worker. She's also a hypnotist, and she's an integrated mental health provider and a specialist. And I can attest that Lynn knows mental health like nobody's business. And really, I would say human behavior and human interaction and motivation. And it is just a pleasure. And Lynn serves on the board for our Love Box Foundation and has been instrumental in our schools programs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But as we're looking to really serve people with their mental health and then social and emotional learning, Lynn, you've just been invaluable. And we have had a lot of fun. In fact, Lynn gave me these glasses. And she's got some too.
I have my own.
Oh, do you? All right now.
Well, now Sherita and I want to know how we can get some of those glasses.
Celeste, I sent you some glasses. All right.
Are they okay? Okie dokie. Well, that sounds wonderful. And Lynn, we are just so glad to have you. And is there anything that you'd like to add to what Christine said about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm honored to be here, and thank you for having me. And also, I'm honored to be part of Christine's life. I met her when I first moved down here. And if you can't hear it yet, I am from New York, working on the accent. So now I'm like tamping it down a little bit, but I really didn't know anybody. And I met her at an event, and this beautiful, bright ball of light and energy and love.
Thank you.
She was like, I was so drawn to her, and that I'm just so grateful for that. And what can I tell you about myself? I think Christine told you I work part-time. I'm a clinician in private practice. I mostly do, I would say right now, couples therapy and working with people who have different mental health issues, and utilizing, of course, hypnotherapy. And my love is integrated mental health, meaning that I don't just go straight to medication. Medication is really important, but also diet, exercise, spiritual balance, mind, body, spirit is so important. And I think that's the shift that we're going to see in mental health. So that's really an important focus to me as well. And I'm just really excited to be here. And this is my first radio show, so I'm excited to do this.
Well, what a privilege and honor to have you on the show, Lynn, and to get to know you. Love that accent from New York. And I'm going to tell you, anybody that has Christine in their corner is a champion at heart. I can tell you that.
And blessed.
Yes, you are. Well, Sherita, are you ready to get ready?
I am. I was just, listening and talking about mental health. When writing grants and working with different clients with youth, and we're seeing it on the news that more and more, it's even said that a recent study showed that nearly half of U.S. teens report feeling sad and hopeless. And so tell us about how students are learning to love better with LoveBox and education in schools.
Yeah, absolutely. It basically, there's a lot of different ways that the Love Box is educating, but we have 4 lessons now on what love is, self-love, and then social emotional learning, which is under the category of mental health, which basically is understanding emotions and expressing emotions, and then regulating emotions. So when the students learn about what love is, self-love, and then giving love to other people with the Love Box tradition, they are learning how to put themselves, like to know, well, what is it about someone else that I love about them? And it's taking them out of themselves. So that's a really big deal. With COVID, we found that people, and students especially, have become so lonely, so isolated. Many groups have. But students, the teachers have really said that social settings, because with the Love Box tradition, just briefly to tell you for any of your listeners that might not know, it's basically when the students, they get a Love Box, and then what's inside here is 20 love notes. And so the tradition, and then a book about love. And so the tradition is where a student writes a love note to every other student in the classroom, and then they put all the love notes in the Love Box, and then they take the Love Box out and they pass it around, and they take turns reading it out loud to each other. Well, that totally changes the dynamics in the classroom from one of, and we prototyped this in 7th grade. It's been in 7th grade, 5th grade, and then from K through 12 in 40 schools for inner city kids and Title I schools. And it totally changes where they're thinking outside of themselves and not thinking about, what they don't like about the other person, but how the other person is a gift to them. And what are their skills and talents. So it totally takes them out of their own head into their heart and connecting. See, so we're creating these connections that otherwise just would not even exist. So it's a very unique experience to be able to educate. First of all, the teachers are educating on what is love, what is the Love Box, how do you express yourself, how do you understand love, and then how do you give that to someone else. And so it's really changing the way kids think about other children, and what teachers tell us over and over again, it's creating an emotionally safe experience and environment for kids to be able to express their true self. what they really think and feel. Because there's a lot of masking going on.
And safety, if I can add, safety, feeling safe is really the key to connection. And without the feeling of safety, you really can't form connections or maintain connections. And it's really troublesome how disconnected children are today. So I think, to what Christine said, it's super important to help foster a sense of safety, especially in schools today, where schools, when we were going to school when we were younger, we never had to worry about the things that these kids have to worry about, the school shootings, the school violence, the phones. I don't know about you, but when we were younger, we can go in a bedroom and have privacy and feel safe in our own homes. Whereas today, the phones even come in these kids' bedrooms and they're bullied through the phones. There's no peaceful space anymore for these children. And they're always in like this activated state, this hyperarousal state. So I think that part of the love box, what it does is really just calms their nervous system, allows them the opportunity to connect. Christine talks about the 4 C's, that are pillars of the love box, which is connection, compassion, communication, and courage. And that really, I think, sums up the things that we really want to focus on and help these children to be able to have these feelings, of compassion, of connection. How do they communicate in a way that's loving and kind? And I think we've lost that, in general, as a society, we've lost our ability to communicate. You look on Twitter, right? I mean, all they do is these kids see how adults even communicate with each other. So it's really teaching them loving, kind, empathic words.
Lynn, one thing I'd like to add to what you had to say is, us growing up, most of us grew up in a area where we grew up with both a mother and a father in our home. Yeah. And the other thing is that we grew up with a lot of love and compassion, a lot of encouragement, family meals together where people sat down and had family meals. And when I had my franchise, and we did a lot of recruiting every week, and I've been a consultant now for 10 years, what I remember 12, 15 years ago, how many young children, I say children, people that were graduated from high school, and they lived in a home where predominantly maybe a single parent only. They had live-in boyfriends and girlfriends, parents did, where they weren't married, or they had the live-in boyfriend or girlfriend. The other thing is that these kids that were 18, 19, and 20 years old, they had to work to help offset the cost of the home. So the family home had a roof over their head, had food to eat, and things of this nature. And I mean, we didn't grow up in that environment. And the other thing is back in school, like you say, to be able to share that love, because some of these kids today don't have any love. It's sad that they're not loved in the home. And I say they're not loved in the home. I'm saying that they don't hear it like we heard it growing up. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that, Sherita, or do you have any comment on that?
I do. And as you guys were speaking, I was thinking this box can't help but also impact bullying.
Exactly. Yes.
Because, if you're, in most cases, bullies just really need love. And so they're acting out.
That's right.
And so that was the next thing that was coming to my mind is this is going to impact bullying if it's not already.
Yeah. Last year is when we did 42 schools. So this calendar year of school. So we're gathering the data, and I did spend a lot of time, an hour and a half, with one teacher who worked with 120 students at a private school, and then they did a private-public partnership with a Title I school in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So it was 7th graders, because what I said to them was, you know what, give me your hardest grade level. Where would be the most resistance for love? Because I know for my kids, it was in middle school.
Middle
right?
school.
Oh, middle school. It's all happening in middle school, right? And so the teachers decided we're going to prototype this on the 7th graders. And I was like, it's going to sink or it's going to swim, but we need to know, right? Like, give me your hardest and let's figure it out together. Because I know what it's done for my family. I mean, we started in 1999. I have love notes every single year from the time my 3 kids were, 4 and 5 to now in their, late 20s. So I know the impact, and really the middle school years when we got some pushback from our kids. And so anyway, it had great success. And Sherita, to your point about bullying, the original school really doesn't have, as much bullying, as they're really high achievers, and there's a lot of cliques, right? So cliques and you're in, you're out, right? So it's not as outright as some other schools really are, but certainly in the Title I school, there's some bullying. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the teacher, her name's Kim, that I met with, she said, Christine, I wish you could have been in the classroom, because it literally changed, like kids' eyes lit up and they were like, oh my gosh, you really think that? And she said, when they just went around and around and around, and she said, it gave them value. Kids were like, kids that were different, sat up straighter, their eyes, they looked at the other kids and they looked around like, oh my gosh, everyone here is saying good things about me. And they were like, Christine, she said, it changed those students and how the class operated. And, I don't know if you guys have read the book. Has anybody read the book Permission to Feel with Mark Brackett?
No.
No.
Okay, that's an excellent resource for
Write
all
it
of
down,
us.
though.
Yeah, it's Permission to Feel. And he talks about social and emotional learning. He works for Yale University, and he is the director of the emotional intelligence department. And right now, the social and emotional learning from Yale, their program is in 2,000 schools, and this year they prototyped it in another 1,000. And so I really would love to get the Love Box in there, because he has what's called the Ruler program. Won't get into the whole thing, but basically, R is recognizing emotions, U understanding emotions, E is expressing feelings and emotions. And it's like, we've got to, as a culture, get better about this, because Brené Brown has done a whole bunch of work, and she said the majority of Americans have 3 emotions: mad, sad, and glad. And life is full of so many more emotions. We all have them, but if we don't have a way and a language to express them, they get bottled up, and then they get, they're going to come out in one way or another. So we have to really teach children and ourselves how to express our feelings, our emotions, and our love appropriately.
And
Well,
I
you're
think,
actually, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I think, even with a lot of the couples I work with, it's, a lot of times when people get into really bad cycles, especially couples, it's because when we are upset, we don't know how to say things appropriately. So we say labels, you're this, you're that, because of you. And I think it's so important, like, to teach these children, and also, the people I work with, is keeping it to I statements. I feel sad, or I feel really anxious when you do this, or I feel really disappointed when you say this, and really keep it to I statements. I think that can help people tremendously, not only in young adulthood, but also in their adult relationships as well. EQ is so important. It really is. We've missed the mark with emotional intelligence in the school systems. We've only really looked at, how people can achieve, right? How well they can do in sports, how well they can do academically, but we don't help shape these children to have successful relationships. And that's the key to emotional intelligence, is maintaining and having successful relationships. And we really need to do a much better job at that. And I believe the Love Box can really help with that tremendously.
What I was going to say, a lot of employers now are looking more at the emotional intelligence versus the IQ.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So you guys are preparing them early to also be in touch with that and their emotional intelligence thing. I mean, they probably had never even heard of emotional intelligence or thought about their own. And so you're ahead of the curve as far as that. So I was going to ask the question. So how does Love Box emotion, how does it affect emotional intelligence? But you've pretty much gone into that. Is there more that you can say about that?
Well, Sherita, I actually just wanted to add, you are so right. I was reading that one of the highest needed skills now is skills in empathy.
Yes.
Empathy. So we
Yeah.
have compassion, empathy and compassion. So
Right.
empathy really is about understanding another person's feelings and thoughts. And then compassion, I always like to think, is love in action. It's what are you doing about it? And when I think about this journey now of Lovebox, it came to the market 9 years ago, but I started inventing it 10 years ago. And I remember when I was first approached, because we were selling it, as a product. And I was approached that very first year for women, this other woman, and she said, can we give some of them for women who are abused, like physical abuse and sexual abuse? And I was like, of course, because I've always been a giver. So I said, okay, well, we're going to give, however many you need. Anyway, it's been so beautiful because every year we've done more and more and more. Now we have the foundation, the Lovebox Foundation, so that we have the charity and the vehicle to give that back. And what I have personally found, and what the Love Agents have found, is that our hearts get more and more open with the more and more people that we are exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started out with those women, then it moved to, foster kids, and then it moved to, the police, the firefighters, everyone. Like, we have literally helped everyone in culture now, whenever there's a mass shooting, and the empathy at first was, of course, for the victims. And then it grew, well, we should be also doing something for all people in the schools. Well, then we should be doing something for those families of the person, of the shooter, right? Like, let's love everybody. And I love how Mother Teresa talked about, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Like,
Absolutely.
This started with my family. What can I give my kids to show them how much I love them? A family tradition, grow, 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 grow. And so however people want to use it, it works in so many different arenas, because the core of it is really social emotional learning about how do you understand other people? How do you walk in their shoes? How do you love your neighbor? How do you love strangers? People that you may not even ever meet, but they are in need. And when we as a society can have that level of compassion, we will become much greater than we are now. And I think we're moving in those directions.
And compassion is joy. We look to all these things to fill us, all these external things and all these achievements and attainments, but we all know as we get older that they fill us very temporarily. But the one thing, and I preach about this book all the time, the Book of Joy, very, very simple, long book, 350 pages, but says the same thing over and over again about how do we attain joy? And it's through compassion. That's the only way to attain joy, is through compassion and doing for others and putting ourselves in other people's shoes. And expanding that too. They say with empathy that if you have empathy naturally, it's always for people who look like you and act like you. So also I think the Love Box is beautiful because it expands that pool, expands that capacity, because we're not just writing notes to someone who looks just like us in the same situation as us. We are writing notes to people who are very different than us, from very different walks of lives, that have gone through incredible tragedies. And, it expands children's hearts to see that just beyond them, and to see all these other people in the world that need love just as much as, their families or people who look just like them. It's expansive and it's important. It really is.
Absolutely. Well, I have a question. Is there scientific evidence that shows the link between love and success?
Lots. Lynn, do you want to take it, or shall I?
Yeah, I mean, we both can talk about this, but we're going to talk about the grand study, right? And emotional intelligence. And, really when it comes down to is, how are you successful if you not only not love others, but not love yourself, right? It really starts there, like loving yourself and having the capacity to do that. And then, of course, loving others. It's social connectedness is the most important thing. without connection, we really have nothing. If you think about the babies they would talk about in orphanages that wouldn't thrive because they weren't being loved and held and touched. Love is a basic human necessity. It is like water and it's like food. We need that. So how can you have success without love? It's a basic human need. And it's the connectedness to others, and it's the capacity to be in relationships in a loving way, an emotionally intelligent way. That's super important to success.
Sherita, one thing that to that question right there between love and success, a lot of the clients that I've been dealing with and been talking with, and a lot of articles that I've been reading, we have a mass exit of people that are leaving work, and they're leaving work because they don't feel valued. And when we use the word love, it's loved, appreciated of who they are as an individual, what you were just saying, Lynn. I mean, they're not just a number here to do this, and feel undervalued, underappreciated. And so I totally agree with you that love and success go hand in hand. And employees that work for companies are going to work harder and do a much better job when they do feel valued and feel loved and appreciated. And those people that are leaving, a lot of these companies are going to be hurting because of that.
What a beautiful shift, though, right? I mean, when I was in corporate America years back, that was not the environment that I was raised in. Christine, I'm sure you can attest to this too in the financial world. It's doggy back then. It was dog eat dog. You were disposable. Your thoughts and your feelings didn't matter. You just had to show up and do the job and basically be seen and not heard type of thing, like we would hear when we were kids back in the day. So I love this shift. I love the fact that empathy is now something that they're looking for in corporate America. I never thought I would see the day. And it's such a beautiful thing to see this shift and this, this turn towards humanism, right? That people and their feelings and their emotional health really matter. And I know that now they see the correlation between having high stress jobs, having low empathy jobs, where there's not a lot of connectedness, there's a lot of illness too. Actually, and if you don't have connectedness, they say that if you're not socially connected, that you die 20% earlier than someone who is, you die younger. So it's just so important. And I'm so glad to see this shift finally in corporate America. It's a long time coming. Good thing.
That kind of goes to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Sherita, go ahead.
That kind of goes to my next question, because mental health is a major issue. I mean, we've had more than 160 mass shootings in the US just in 2023.
Yeah.
And so now some are adults shooting, there's kids shooting. So how can friends and families help others with their mental health? And like you said, Mother Teresa said, go in the home, start loving. So through what you're doing, how can that help families with their mental health?
Well, just think about, right, Christine, using the love box just as a family tradition. Most families, sadly, I hear this a lot, that, there isn't a lot of expression of love, and it's not often out of neglect. Sometimes it's just because people are so busy, people are so overwhelmed, or they just don't know where to start. They don't know how to. So, I love Christine with the Christmas love box. It's such a beautiful process where people write, the family sits down and they all write to each other, what they love about each other. And then they take these notes out and they read them. And I'm sure for a lot of families, it's the first time they've ever heard these loving, kind words. And it's so moving. I mean, you can talk more to that, Christine, but I remember the woman on one of the videos that was talking about how it connected her family and it healed. It was such a beautiful healing moment for her family that they hadn't really experienced ever. And do you want to talk a little bit more about that, the love box of family?
Yeah, Sherita, it is such a great question. And I have a lot of mental illness in my family of origin, a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and the most serious kind of mental illnesses. And so I have been in 8 mental health facilities, visiting loved ones for extended stays. I have seen such devastation. And I have family and friends that have as well. And so this means so much to my heart because, you think about, why did I even start this? And I felt like God just kind of said, he gave me, what can you give your kids to show them how much you love them, when I was looking for gifts in a store.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband and I were like, let's just write love notes and read them out loud. Like, let's just try this. But when I reflect now and look back, we've been doing this for over 20 years. And the thing is, when I was a child, I felt invisible.
Mm-hmm.
I came from a family without, divulging. I love my family. My family's, everyone did the best they could. But there was a lot of sickness, extreme sickness, and without treatments that could help, right? And so as a child, I would look and I would try to make sense of it, and it didn't make sense. And I'm getting emotional because this love box makes sense out of senselessness. It makes the impossible possible. As families, we can do a better job caring for each other and treating each other with love and dignity and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts in the home and it grows. And, children don't have the capacity or the power that adults have to speak up and say, you're bullying me, it's not okay. We're trying to teach them, we're trying to get through to them. But there has got to be the relationship between the schools and the families and churches. We've got to come together for kids and families, because we are in this situation because we have not.
Mhm.
We are in this mental health crisis because we have not loved well.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do a lot more. And so it specifically speaks to mental health because it gives voice to what's going on with us physically, emotionally, mentally, and it gives us a voice as a teacher, as parents and teachers, to train kids that we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to accept these shootings,
That's right.
Sherita. They're not okay.
That's right.
How we are operating as a culture is not okay. And we need to do something very different. And sometimes I hear from people and, like, well, I don't have the time. Well, you have the time. Your teenagers are on technology for an average of 6 hours a day. Don't tell me they don't have the time.
Right.
Who is managing our kids?
Right.
My first book that came out in 2013 is The Momager Guide, Mom Manager, Empowering Moms to Leave a Loving Legacy. So for over 20 years, I've been focusing on love in the family and now in the community. And I'll tell you what, moms, I'll speak directly to moms. You have a choice to make with every minute that you have your children under your roof. I will not accept the excuse that you don't have the time. You need to make the time for your kids and for your family.
Okay. Celeste, I don't want to hog the time. Did you have a question before I?
Well, I was going to go back to what Lynn was saying when we were talking. I don't know if it was about love and success. And I just wanted to share a quick story because Christine just talked about how long. When did you write that book, Christine?
They came out in 2003.
2003.
Well, it came out in 2004. I wrote in 2003. Yeah. And it's interesting because then I worked on the Love Box in 13 and it came out in 14, right? Like, yeah, it's interesting. There's these 10-year cycles.
Absolutely. So we're talking about love, and we're talking about you talking about moms, talking about the home. Len and I were talking about love and success and business and things of this nature. And early in my career, in a direct selling business as a franchise owner, I remember that the company that I worked for, Lynn, had sent an an executive in for 3 days because women were not very prevalent in the direct selling industry back in the 70s and early 80s. It wasn't, you just didn't do that. And so what happened is when they sent a gentleman in for 3 days, when they got done, I thought he was going to deliver the most magical pill of how I was going to take my business to the next level. And he said, Celeste, nobody can recruit and train like you do. Nobody can teach people how to sell like you. Everything you're doing, do not change a thing. But here's the one thing that I want you to do. He says, you need to learn, and I say this in all my workshops, fall in love with people.
Wow.
And he said, I want you to sign up for a Dale Carnegie course on how to win friends and influence people. It was a 12, 13-week course. I had to pay for it. When you graduate, I will come back and take you out to dinner. And so, and it's like, I just started crying. I thought, how dare him? I love people, but I had this sharp, abrasive thing about me. Christina, what made me think of this is when you said my way or the highway or this or that. I wasn't hateful or anything, but I wasn't fine-tuned. And I did love people. And I did come from during that time where my parents had divorced and things of this nature. And so, a lot of things impacted all this. But I will tell you, taking that course and learning to fall in love with people, I never, ever, ever forgot that and implemented it immediately into my personal and business life. And especially in my consulting business and my workshops, that's one of the key things I talk about is how you have to fall in love with people. You don't necessarily have to, enjoy everything about them because we can all be different, but you do have to love everybody and you love people equally. I don't care what color they are, what race they are. I don't care what religion they are, what political thing they are. You still love people unconditionally. And that was the greatest business advice that I ever received. And by taking that 12-week course of how to win friends and influence people, changed my life dramatically, and it taught me to love people. And top it off of what you're saying there, Christine. That's the same thing in business. Remember a few years ago, you had the FedEx and UPS and people that came into corporations and were doing shootings and things of this nature. Just imagine where you loved on people, people felt appreciated and valued. What a big difference that would. And, what a big difference it would make to take a love note and to write not necessarily you call it a love note, but a note to an employee showing appreciation. Just because it has a heart, you still can do that. And I just think that's so important to love people.
Yeah,
it's life-changing. I was thinking when Christine was speaking, and I didn't really share about my background as well, but I was a juvenile delinquent in very bad shape, came from a very broken family. My father was mentally ill and mom worked nights. So I was running the streets, suspended from school at least 7 times, was really on a path to be arrested, to be in the system, really. And failing school and doing lots of drugs and doing just crazy things. And I remember in high school, there was this intervention, this program that I was a part of it wasn't a resource room, it was something else. I can't remember the name of it, but you would go there and you would talk to whoever was in the room at the time. And they also had peers that would come in also and talk with you, kids that were doing really well in school. And they were always building me up, even when I would have a tantrum, so I could just go out and smoke a cigarette and would, yell and do whatever. I would come back and they would sit me down and they would be like, we still love you. We're still here for you. You can have all the tantrums you want, but we're still going to be here for you. And we're going to get you out of high school. And they constantly told me how lovable I was. And they constantly built me up. And I went from dropping out in 11th grade, literally dropping out of high school and beauty school. I was the beauty school dropout. Graduation day with you. I literally was. And it was during the time Grease came out too. So everyone was singing the song to me. It was unbearable. And I came back in my senior year and my teachers, they all rallied around me, and my guidance counselors and the support staff in that room. And I crammed classes before, during, everything to graduate on time. And I did. And not only did I graduate on time, but I went on to putting myself through NYU and Columbia University all on my own. I moved out when I was 19. And I know the only reason why that happened was because of those individuals that showed me unconditional love at Northport High School. They were amazing, and they changed my life. They turned my life around. And I think that's the key, right? Even when you can't find love at home, or they don't know how to express it at home, and you're not in a safe environment, if we can create these safe spaces for these kids to bond and unite and connect, and have teachers connect with them, you could save a life. And I felt like, for me, that's exactly what happened. They saved my life, and I have spent my life now really just paying it forward as much as I possibly can.
Wow. And like, how long ago was that? And it still had an impression. It's not like it was a year.
Oh,
that it-
no, that was a very long time ago. Yeah.
We do not realize the impact that we can
Yes.
have in fleeting moments.
That's
No
right.
matter what, they were telling you, you're still not pushing us away. You can throw a
That's
tantrum if
right.
you want to. You
That's
can go
right.
have a cigarette if you want to. You're
That's
not
right.
pushing us away. So that
Right.
comes to my next question. What's a piece of advice that you could give our audience about how to love more?
Love in a way that is without expectations. That's the key to loving, is to love in a way that is fully compassionate without judgment, right? I mean, to love without judgment is key, and to love without expecting anything in return. That is really the most important thing we can do in loving someone else. That's it.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I'll add a story. Before the Love Box came out, my mom and dad both lived with us when my dad was really sick. And I had the honor of sitting with him a lot. He was supposed to only live 3 weeks to 3 months. He loved it so much with us. He lived a year and 3 months. We're like, well, being 100%
You weren't like,
Italian.
we were only bargaining for this for 3 months. No.
That's a lot. Anyway, every Sunday, our family always has done Sunday dinners. In Italian families, it's a tradition. My grandma did it. I did it. It's just what we do. And so my dad, bless him, he was 100% Italian, immigrant from Italy, never got past the 3rd grade in Italy, made such a good life for himself, worked so hard to get us all educated. Anyway, he'd wear his fedora, get all dressed up every Sunday, and we would sit, my whole family with my 3 kids, and pour the stories into them. And I interviewed my dad and mom a lot to write their life story, and also to videotape their stories, because I wanted to preserve their legacy of love. And one day I asked my dad, okay, give me the one piece of advice. Like, what am I going to tell the kids, the grandkids, that this is what Grandpa Tony said? And he was not a man of a lot of words. And he said, he thought for a long time. And then he said, love everybody and everything. He's like, it really does boil down to love. And he was a tough guy, construction worker, tough guy. But he's like, really, Christine, it all comes down to love. And just weeks before he passed, we did the Love Box. It was before we had the tradition, but we've been doing the tradition since '99, but we did not have the physical box. We just basically cut up scraps of wrapping paper, and then we'd write love notes to each other. And so just a few weeks before he passed was his birthday. And so we all wrote love notes to him, and he got to write them to everyone in our family as well. And we get to really pour back into him. And at the end, he just said, you've given me such a great gift of love, and I will never be able to thank you enough. And that's what it all comes down to, is love everybody and everything.
Yeah.
You know, when
So-
we're reflecting back on our lives, we're not, you know, I say this to everyone. We don't reflect back on the people and the love. We don't reflect back on all the beautiful, loving relationships we have, right? That's kind of a given, but we always reflect back on who we didn't love enough. So don't allow that to be the last thing you think of, is who didn't I
Very
love
good.
enough, or who didn't I love good enough, or who didn't I love fully? You know, don't have that regret. Really think about that, right? You're not going to think about the people that you've loved the most. You're going to think about the people you didn't love well. So you can change that trajectory for yourself. And when you think back, you can think back just about beautiful, beautiful, loving memories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very good. We have about 9 minutes left, ladies. And I know, Lynn, you just gave a beautiful example of what I was going to ask this question is, what is one piece of advice you would give our listeners about how to love more?
For me personally, it really starts with yourself, right? A lot of what I do is, it's called shadow work, right? Integrating parts of ourselves that we've pushed away, that we shame ourselves over, things that we don't like about ourselves. So we're detached from these parts of ourselves and we beat up on ourselves about these things. So start there, like really look at those parts of yourselves as survival parts. We all have things about ourselves that we don't like. I can be really awful in traffic sometimes, and the New York comes out of me so quickly, and it's like, you know, and then I'll be upset with myself for not being more zen about that. But then I realized, you know, that part of me, that's the survival part of me. That is the part of me that had to really stand up and fight a lot of things to survive a very, very incredibly difficult childhood filled with so much abuse and neglect. So that part of me now, you know, I look at that part and that's just who I am. That's how I survived, that toughness, that like ready to fight, you know, let's go type of thing. And I think that's where we all need to start, is to look at the things about ourselves that we aren't happy with, but then look at those things in a compassionate way. Because when you're compassionate towards yourself, then it's so much easier to be compassionate towards others. So my best advice is to start loving yourself more, because it's so much easier to love other people. It really is.
You know, ladies, we keep saying this 4-letter word, but what is love?
Thank you for asking that, Sherita.
Good question.
Great question. All right, I'm going to share with you the official Webster Dictionary definition first, and then want to expand on it, because Webster says it is affection and strong attachment. Hold on a minute. There we go. A feeling of strong attachment, affection, or devotion to another person. So in the English language, we have just one word for love, right? Love. But the Greeks actually have had 6 main words, and then there were words that were offshoots of that. So the love that we're looking at with the love box is family love, familial love, which is one type of love. Like when I had all my children, I had a certain kind of love that is reserved for each one of them and my family, right?
Mhm.
Then there's brotherly love, you know, agape love, divine brotherly love. We love our brothers and sisters just because they exist, and we've all been created to be here at this time and place. Then there's also, you know, love of like entertaining, which is interesting, like entertaining other people, serving other people. That's another kind of love. So there's actually like 6 main types of love, 6 main types of love. And in our education programs, depending on the level of the students, they learn a little bit different, you know, more and more about love, the older that they get, different areas of love. So that's what it is. And, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, why it's important to put it in writing, because right now we're texting, we're emailing, right? There's all this social media, there's all this, I call it surface level love. You know, you can have 1,200 friends on social media, but not have one real friend that you're calling in a pinch. I call them 3 a.m. friends, you know, like I need to have, so there's a lot of different types of friends that we can have, and a lot of different levels of love that we can have. So it's almost like there's a surface, you know, it could be a surface level. I'm cordial to people. And I always like, I think if love seems like such too big of a word to even to struggle with, another word for love is being kind, like just being kind and gentle. And, so there's a lot of ways in expression of love, but that's a few ways for us to think about it. And I often think that love, I like to say we're on a love quest. So the ultimate is unconditional love for all of humanity, right? That's the bar. And then here we are, just continually growing, and we're going to grow, and then we're going to slide back, we're going to go in, we're going to do all kinds of things till we get there. But it's a love quest that we're on. And so we're trying to grow in those areas of love.
And compassion. Compassion is the pillar of love. It really is. Compassion.
And another word that comes to mind, Lynn and Christine, is giving people grace with that love.
Yes.
Well,
so, go ahead, Sherita.
Well, I just was in hearing that. The other thing that I thought about, like when you mentioned text, it's so easy to just type anything, whether you're on a text, whether you're typing an email, whatever. But when you're going through the motion of writing, you're thinking about it more. And something that you probably would have quickly said in a text that didn't mean anything, you're thinking about it more when you're in the motion of writing. And that's the other thing that I like about listening to you ladies and what you're bringing to the school, because the other thing is that naturally we always say men don't communicate. Men are horrible about communicating. You're changing that too. And you're giving them permission to be emotional and to write those words. And so again, that's helping with their self-esteem and their openness, that they will later be able to comfortably say to their spouse, to their family, in the workplace or whatever, instead of not communicating.
Right. I mean, we have socialized boys and girls so differently. And all the research shows, I mean, men have such deep wells of emotion and passion and compassion, but they have to be trained. The more we train people, the more they learn. And I wanted to share, this is the Love Movement book that we have. And I wanted to actually share, we were talking a lot about mental health. I want to share one love note to you. And these were written by caregivers of people, because one of the categories is mental health in here. And it's, dear caregiver, keep fighting the fight. And at the end of the day, know you will hear the words, well done, my good and faithful servant. We must be tireless in our pursuit of good and noble care, so our loved ones' dignity and worth is preserved. I hope you can find the answers that you are looking for. Go just one step at a time. Be gentle with yourself. I hope you learn everything you need to know about your loved one's illness, and that you will have the courage, compassion, and the connections that you need. See, so these love notes, we're not talking about, oh yeah, you can do it, and it's all this surface stuff. The love notes in here, and that we are all written by people that have been impacted by the situation and the tragedy. And so I think that there's a depth of voice and an understanding and compassion to be able to help people get to the next level of love. And, I was just thinking about one of the questions that I ask of myself, of my kids, of my husband, over and over again, is just, what's the next loving thing you can do? Right. I mean, I started this when my kids were little wee babies, you can talk and, Steve took my car. What's the next loving thing you could do? But it's my car. And then they learn how to problem solve and get into much deeper levels of conflict resolution and forgiveness. Yeah, love ties all of these things in with it.
Absolutely. We are at the top of the hour, and we could go on and talk forever, Christine and Lynn and Sherita. For about 30 seconds, Christine, how can others be in touch with you and get involved with the Love Box Foundation, please?
Yes, I hope that this has resonated, and I hope that you have felt the love and the courage that you're going to need to grow in love. And if this resonates with you, you know, we're always in need of volunteers or donations, people to come alongside us to be able to help more people. And so if that's something that resonates with you, I would love for you to go to loveboxfoundation.org, or that's the foundation part of it. And then there's also originallovebox.com. And I want to show you this one little envelope I have here. This envelope actually has 47 cents in it. And we had an event, and this event was for kids at risk. And this was given by a little girl who was 8 years old. And she gave this out of her $1 allowance for that week. And so whatever your gift is, I would love for you to help us spread more love.
She's already a philanthropist.
Yes, she is.
I know.
It's so true.
It's just so sweet. I'm like, I keep it right here on my desk, because I'm like, that's what it's all about, giving of whatever you have, have.
Absolutely. So in closing, ladies, and Christine, what a blessing it always is to have you on the show on the Love Box Foundation. Thank you for our new friend, Lynn Pollizi. What a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing from your heart. When it comes from the heart, Lynn, it goes to the heart. And I really appreciate you sharing that story. Sherita, you are one of the most fabulous co-hosts that I've ever had. I really appreciate you, all the great works that you are doing. And I want to close. I was saving this for the end, Christine, because I do have those glasses. And I would like
Let's get a picture.
And I would like to read a love note that you sent me.
Oh, wait.
And it says, "Dear Celeste, what a wonderful love agent you are. Thank you for spreading love everywhere you go. I'm so happy that we can love kiddos, know they are valued and loved. We're doing divine work that will reap rewards for years to come. Your love is deep and wide. May God continue to bless you abundantly. Love Agent Christine Martinello."
I got to put on some glasses of some kind. Maybe I'll
We're going to get you some. And in closing, I just want to thank and love on Penny Rogers, CEO and founder of WCEG Network, the board of directors. What a phenomenal platform that you give women like us and so many other people to get their message out there and to spread love and to educate and inform our community to become a better community. So thank you, Penny Rogers. Thank you, ladies. God bless. I love my glasses. And I'm going to we'll get you some, Sherita, okay?
Well, thank you, ladies. Love.
Love. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.